Hey everyone, we are here to talk full spoilers on Doctor Strange, the new Marvel movie, what we liked and what we didn't. So if you haven't seen the movie, bookmark this, come back and watch it. But again, full spoilers. So, guys, Goldman, you reviewed the film for us. So, in a nutshell, did you like the movie?
I stand by my review. I did like the movie. I didn't love the movie, but
You gave it a 7.7 out of 10.
I gave it a 7.7 out of 10. I feel like Marvel, look, Marvel's in a good place where their weaker movies are still solidly entertaining, well-made, some great sequences movies, So I thought Strange, coming off Civil War, which I actually really loved, I didn't think it was one of their top-level films, but it's a well-done movie. It feels a little by the numbers as far as the fact that it is an origin story and that it doesn't really deviate from anything in the way it tells that origin story. It's very like, this is the pattern, this is the arc the character's going to go on. At the same time, though, there was a lot of cool stuff in it, and the visuals of it are the standout. That's what I kind of said in my review is, on one hand, it's very familiar, on the other hand, it feels new and fresh because the visuals bring something very different to Marvel and to just kind of big comic book movies in general that make me mostly excited about the character being in play for the future of these films.
Yeah, we got to see kind of Steve Ditko's vision of this character. It's like, DC's kind of wanted to get into the space stuff, and they're obviously leaning in that direction. But actually seeing Marvel outside of Guardians doing it was actually really nice.
Yeah, all the interdimensional stuff. So, Ahmad, you were telling me your thoughts about the film off camera, but now
you've seen it most recently of us.
Yes.
You just saw it last night.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I'd give it a solid 7. It's my issue was mainly that they spent too much time on the origin story. Like I felt like 50% of the movie was the origin, and the minute the origin is over, the movie really kicks into high gear. Not that the origin isn't interesting; it's still interesting. I thought Rachel McAdams was really good in it. I just didn't feel that we needed an hour origin to this story. It was very, like you said, by the numbers.
Yeah.
It was fine, but ultimately, like you said, Marvel is in a good place because it's still an entertaining 2 hours or whatever film. It's just, okay, we've seen this, we understand how this works, we know what's coming next.
I enjoy the film. I would also probably give it a 7 to a 7.5. Now, I've only seen it once. I'm gonna hopefully go see it again tonight.
Same here.
So I reserve the right to like it more the second time or like it less, because that's my prerogative. But I have to say, as the man who did tell Benedict Cumberbatch that he'd be a perfect Doctor
Wait,
Strange.
I never heard about
responsible
this.
for this.
Yes.
What?
I'm just, yes.
This is a
that
new
was me.
story to me completely.
I know. I've never once humble bragged about this. But it was good to see that I was right. And,
halfway through the movie, he screamed, "I was right!" We watched it together.
Pretty
he did
damn,
not do that.
pretty much. But no, I really liked him as Doctor Strange. I think the origin is necessary, but I think there was probably a way you could have told it in a more succinct manner and maybe a little less linearly. Like I think there was a way that for a movie that's so out there that they played it so safe on a narrative level, I think was a little disappointing. But I enjoyed the film. I agree on the visuals. I think there's some really stunning imagery, and I thought it was far funnier than I was expecting. I mean, we all know Marvel movies are funny, but one thing though, and Ahmad, this speaks to a point that you had made right before we rolled, is Doctor Strange, as played by Benedict Cumberbatch, is he too much of an a-hole? Even in a universe full of a-hole-ish heroes.
Yeah, we have a couple of jerks. I mean, Tony Stark is arrogant, but he's not a jerk per se. Strange is a jerk.
Yeah.
And he becomes more likable as the movie goes on, and there's definitely a progression and an arc there. But he's not like a completely different person by the end of the movie. Still kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
I think though that's why casting Cumberbatch I almost said because I am a Cumberbatch now. I think that's why it was important and why he came on the radar. Besides Jim, which is that with Sherlock, obviously, because Sherlock is a son of a bitch. Like Sherlock is like his Sherlock is just a complete jerk, and so you'd already proven, and yet you like him, you know. And so I think that's why him playing Strange works so well. Is that's kind of his wheelhouse. Is like smug, superior, and yet you still like the guy, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I agree with you, but it also I don't think was sort of detrimental because I still was sort of engaged. I still was invested in him, both thanks to the depiction of the character and a lot because of the performance.
And also, you get to see him get consistently humbled for the first hour of the movie,
Right.
Yeah.
by like all of the different ancient characters. All of the sorcerers are basically get a shot at him.
Well, let's talk about some of the other performances in the movie. Let's start. You mentioned Rachel McAdams. Now, I love her. I like her in everything. I did feel she was woefully underserved here. Like she just didn't have enough screen time, and it was kind of the thankless girlfriend role. But her scene, the surgery scene, that's right out of I think it's out of The Oath, right?
Yeah.
That's like one of the best scenes in the movie.
Yeah.
But what did you guys think of the Christine Palmer character and that performance?
Yeah, I mean, I also love Rachel McAdams. Think she's just a great, very likable. You said that word as we were coming out of the movie, but it's true. Like you feel like drawn to her and engaged by her. The character, yeah, it was fairly simple. It was
It was Jane and Thor 1.
It's Jane and Thor 1. It was very reactive,
Yeah.
and some of it's funny, and some of it's sort of, and that sequence you mentioned is sort of very cool as far as the insanity of her trying to keep him alive while he's having an astral plane battle. That's a creative sequence, but her character doesn't have a lot to do. I mean, I know you can say she's saving lives, but as far as plot, she's there to react.
Yes.
Really,
She doesn't have any story that exists outside of Strange. Which
Yeah,
is,
Yeah.
Which is a
No
shame.
agency.
Yeah, which is a shame because it feels like you don't want such a sort of simple love interest character, and B because Rachel McAdams can do a lot more. So it just feels like she should. It's too bad she didn't really have her own storyline in it. And I'm not saying give her like half the movie. I'm just saying like you said.
I think she would have been better served if they, I feel like they could have gotten a less well-known actress for that run. I would have loved to have seen her play like Clea, like give her something that she can sink her teeth into, because we've seen her now in dramas, and we know she can do comedy, and I just feel like if you're going to get Rachel McAdams in the MCU, give her something to do, and that the hospital scene, all her scenes are a hospital scene
Right.
except for dropping off her keys, but outside of that surgery scene. She's kind of just there to be like I know you're still a good man somewhere.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty by the numbers stuff.
Yeah.
What did you guys think? Another actor in that sequence of that storyline who's completely wasted is Michael Stuhlbarg as Nicodemus West. He's a great actor. I believe he was nominated for an Oscar for a Coen Brothers movie. That character could have been played by anybody. In fact, given the blank looks on your faces, I don't think you guys even remember that character.
I remember him.
Yeah.
But
I feel like he's set up for another movie.
I mean, I feel like he's got a name that has some significance to the comics. I'll just say, it felt like one of those things where they cast with we never know. Like I don't think for sure they're like we're definitely gonna do something with a character, but you cast a really good actor because you're like, hey, we're making so many interconnected movies. Maybe we'll get to something big with this guy,
Benjamin Bratt had more, and this, again, we're going to spoilers. He had better scenes than
Benjamin
Bratt.
I was
no
so
wonder
happy.
He's on the poster.
I was so happy to see Benjamin Bratt in there, and he has two small, but like he has a tiny role, and it's super pivotal.
Yeah.
And he has like literally two scenes, and he's
one that some people were gonna miss.
Yeah, that's definitely a worry is that people are gonna miss the second after credits.
We'll talk about the post credit scenes a little later in this,
but he was great.
Yeah. Now let's move on to the villains of the piece, and I am saying multiple villains here because although Caecilius is our main villain, there is also the reveal of Dormammu.
The dread Dormammu.
The dread Dormammu. By the hoary host of Hogarth, look at you dropping references. So let's talk about Caecilius. I feel like this character, as much as I like Mads Mikkelsen, and the D evidently is silent, and it's not Mads, which
many interviews with Brian Fuller taught me that.
Yes, Caecilius does not, from my point of view, solve Marvel's villain problem. I think it's yet another kind of underwritten or underutilized character played by an overqualified actor for such a role. You know?
He was fine, and I think their sort of low bar is Malekith in Thor: The Dark World, as far as like
which he was up for.
right. Which I couldn't tell you
Yeah.
a thing about that character except he kind of looked cool, but that's it. But yeah, again, great actor, so it was exciting to even have him in this movie. A perfectly adequate villain has scripted, which isn't what you want, right?
Right.
Like he's fine.
You want memorable.
Yeah, you want
memorable and menacing.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like in this case, I guess maybe it's even a little more disappointing because the seeds are there. He's got the backstory, the history with the Ancient One. There's things there, but it felt like he needed like 3 more scenes.
Yeah.
It's
just
like
not enough screen time
It's just
from
not
those
enough
stuff.
screen time and not enough. And what we're kind of told these things. Oh, yeah, he was one of the Ancient One's disciples, and then he turned. Blah blah.
Show, don't
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah.
So we don't feel that. We don't feel that history because there's not enough screen time to really get it there. So he gives a good performance. He has a great opening sequence. The movie's opening sequence with him and the Ancient One fighting. And he's a nice presence in the movie, but as far as a memorable villain, unfortunately, it's another not quite there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they always it's obviously their existing problems. They always get overshadowed by the villain. But I'll say
By the hero, you mean?
by the hero. But I'll say is if there is a Doctor Strange 2, I think they would put a very nice setup for Baron Mordo. Where he's a character that you're invested in. He's a character that had an arc over the course of the film.
Right.
Like that was actually, I thought, a very good villain setup and kind of better
And
than I've seen.
Chiwetel's great doing like basically the MCU's version of Anakin, if you will.
Yes.
So let's talk about Mordo because he is in a lot of ways kind of our gateway into this, where he is brings Strange into this world and kind of a mentor in a way, but more like a brother, which is great because I think that captures again the Anakin Obi-Wan kind of thing.
Right. You were like a brother to me.
Yeah, pretty much, right? But again, like if they had, I don't know if I quite buy his villain turn at the end, the heel turn or whatever. His idea of being shocked that the Ancient One, whom I believe he actually explained, she's lived for hundreds of years, and Ancient One is a title that's passed down. And so it's just kind of dawning on him that she's been drawing from the dark dimension to stay alive longer, and he never once wondered, how did all the other Ancient Ones live so long? Like, it just, I didn't quite buy that.
I felt like with both groups, with Caecilius's group and the Ancient Ones group, is they're not questioning their leaders. It's just like, oh, no, she's in the position, this is what she does, I'm not going to, and because he even says that to Strange a couple of times, like, why are you questioning her? It's like, this has not occurred to him in any level. It's just like, we're doing good work. She's redeemed me out of my past. And,
what do they do all day though? Like seriously, like there just seems to be like I don't even Caecilius and then like he steals the pages and then like what? It took him years to
well, let's go see a
transfer.
movie.
Exactly. All right, who wants pizza? Conjure one up. Like it just seems like what do you do all day? Like it just seems kind of empty. Like
it's a pretty chill lifestyle. I mean, they're really enjoying it up there.
And also, you didn't really need to have any special. Not that I wanted midi-chlorians or some crap, but like anybody can just learn magic if you're open-minded. Like it didn't seem terribly special in that regard.
And the thing, the joking about what do they do all day, it's also like that's the thing about even like Caecilius. Am I saying his name right?
Yeah,
he has like several people working for him, but you have no idea like what's their deal,
Yeah.
And like Scott Adkins, we know it's Scott Adkins,
Yeah, I
so
was
it's
like,
like
Scott
he gets to be
Adkins.
like the.
You didn't even get a name.
He gets would be the one magic henchman who gets a moment, but we still don't know anything.
I did love the doorway,
him,
the portal stuff to like dropping people off
that
at
was
different places.
great.
That was fun.
Like that was
Reminded me
that
of
was
Time
like
Bandits.
so creative.
Yeah.
But yeah, like as on a character level, we didn't really understand like. Yeah, like he's got his posse, but where do they come from?
Let's go back to Mordo though, and we'll talk about that post-credits tag then here, at least that second one. We'll talk about the first one later. But why does he want a world without sorcerers?
I feel
Because
like he's hyper regimented. He's like, these are the rules. This is how I've been instructed. This is order, and she has broken the order. She's broken natural law, and therefore we can't trust any sorcerer to be the holder of natural law.
But don't they break natural law anytime they do that crap and create a little triangle?
No, I think conjuring is different from disrupting the natural order of things. This is just like, hey, we're making these spells to do this, that, and the other. Not, hey, we're gonna screw up time. We're gonna crash a building. We're gonna go, we're gonna break portals and dimensions. Like he's just like, hey.
So then, won't he want to destroy Dormammu? Even though I know Dormammu is not a sorcerer, but like, if ultimately Mordo doesn't want any sorcerers, I mean, is he gonna kill himself? Like, what is he like? I don't get what is his end game then.
He's
ultimately?
Sinestro.
Yeah.
He's totally Sinestro.
Yeah, and,
But
that tag felt like the Green Lantern
It did,
tag.
but at least it had some motivation. The Green Lantern
Yeah.
tag had literally none. It was like, we're friends now.
Yeah, and I'm
evil.
in a yellow suit. Look at me.
But I do think that it is the sequel. I don't want to open with like, I am fully evil. Like, we still have to see more of like, I am disillusioned.
He needs his Attack of the Clones, you're saying?
Yeah.
He needs an inciting event that makes him just maybe Strange does something, maybe or somebody magic opens
something
something.
from
Turning his
Infinity
back
War.
on them isn't the same as like turning against them. So
Yeah.
I still think we're going to need.
But did he
that.
really have to do that to Benjamin Bratt? That seems so mean. You're going to seek out the guy, make him crippled again, and then does he kill him or does he just?
No, I think he
don't
just
think
left
so.
him just like.
What an a-hole! Seriously.
Sorry,
what
Ben.
a bastard. All right, so the other big villain, obviously, we mentioned Dormammu, the Dread Dormammu.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We've seen the giant space thing a few times and not done well. Fantastic Four tried it, and Green Lantern. If you can't see it, we have a Green Lantern.
Collection.
The Fantastic Four.
Yeah, Fantastic Four, Green Lantern. Did you like the way they did this iteration of Dormammu? I kind of miss old Firehead in his purple suit, but that's just me.
I wouldn't have minded a physical kind of representation of like a single body, and maybe he expands into the other larger thing later. But it would have been nice to have him square off with a person, at least for part of the conversation, not giant face in the sky. But I will say, out of Parallax and Galactus, this was way better.
It wasn't the crap cloud that was.
Oh God! It was
No.
like the stuff that comes out of your vacuum cleaner.
And again, it was a clever sequence as far as how he kept being killed and coming back.
The
and
loop
how,
was great.
And then how he
was a
kept
very
used that
Captain
against,
Kirk thing
Used
of
that
like-
against Dormammu. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that
I
it
like
was
that.
basically a Captain Kirk thing of I will talk this thing
I will
into
annoy
insanity.
you.
Like Captain
For
Kirk.
eternity.
You
Uh,
said that
Captain
Strange
Kirk
is an
used to do
a-hole,
that
so he's
stuff.
going to use
Right.
that.
Exactly, yeah.
The greatest magic is his ability.
It's his a-holeness. But yeah, I think Dormammu. It could have been a real disaster if it didn't work because again, our two reference points
Yes.
were two very bad comic book movies. But I think I'm curious to see where they go with Dormammu and the Dark Dimension. I mean, visually, the Dark Dimension was really awesome. I wasn't nuts about the look of Dormammu, and we found out that Benedict Cumberbatch actually was the facial
Mocap.
reference for the mocap of that one, and some
voice.
unnamed. No, it wasn't. It was a
wasn't the
different.
voice.
It was a different actor.
Interesting.
Different British actor. But yeah, curious to see what they do with Dormammu. I mean, in an MCU that has Thanos. Is Dormammu a greater threat ultimately than Thanos? And so, and Dormammu just wanted the Earth because he wanted to turn it into like a lifeless husk.
Right. And then,
Hey, come November 8th, that might happen. Oh, I'm sorry, zing, boom, boo. Thumbs down.
He's there. I think he's somebody that you can revisit. He's
Yeah.
But he doesn't necessarily have to be an impending threat to the Earth.
Yeah.
They can explore.
but
other
I
stuff.
would hope that isn't the only thing we do with him, though. Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like there should be more.
Yeah. All right. Well, we want to hear what
More
you
Mamu.
guys thought of the more Mamu. What you guys thought of the villains in Doctor Strange. Let us know in the comments. Let's move on to the Ancient One. Now, obviously, Tilda Swinton is an amazing actress and just the one of the weirdest people. I got to meet her for the junket. She's sweet. But it was like meeting a color. It was like, oh, fuchsia, that's what you're like in person. Like, she doesn't even seem like human. Like, she really is like, she would have made a great Doctor Strange, I think, too.
Just floating in the air right by you.
Yeah, pretty much, almost. But let's talk about what did you think of this already controversial depiction of the Ancient One, and then we can, I have kind of my reasons into why it given the end of the movie, why they cast it the way they did. But what did you guys think of Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One?
It's funny because I got yelled at on Twitter. Shocking, I know.
It's usually so nice.
Because in my review, I wrote something about like, I brought up the controversies, but I said, controversies aside, I thought she was great. And someone yelled at me for even saying controversy aside, where I understand like it's a huge issue in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to be like dismissive of people who are upset about that. That being said, on its own terms, if you just go into the movie and you don't even know anything about the Ancient One from the comics, she's great. Like she's
the Jedi Master.
Because she's so odd in such an interesting way. And in this movie, I thought it was really fun to cast her as this, this sort of both. Yeah, she is very Jedi because she's very Yoda as far as being someone you might like think isn't going to be that powerful, and then she is, and then
she has cheeky wit too, kind of like
right,
Yoda had
right.
in Empire.
But she's so sort of ethereal and not of this world, that's her Tilda Swinton-ness, that it worked great, and she just kind of exudes that sort of inner tranquility and peace.
Yeah.
But she can also play that power. So I really liked her. And
Yeah.
I love the scenes with her and Strange and Baron Mordo together. I really liked, just like but first of all, these three amazing actors,
Yeah.
and who are just kind of all in on this craziness.
Yeah, normally you would only see them in like a period movie.
Right, right.
Like
Or some
it's
Shakespearean
got
thing.
nothing to do with it's got nothing to do with like British politics or anything. It's just like we're gonna play sorcerers and run around.
Yeah, and then I love getting to watch her, be the all powerful magician, sorceress, and.
Oh, you mean her stunt double, where they put the hood on her and she could
That
do
was
all
her,
that?
man.
Like, hey, Tilda don't get out of bed for less.
No,
than,
that was literally her because they didn't need to do special effects because Tilda Swinton can just.
She can't move that.
yeah.
What'd you think of
It's
Tilda
still
as the Ancient
weird.
One?
It's still weird that they cast her in this role and then changed her to a to Celtic for other reasons, and we're gonna put her in this character that's originally Asian, in these Asian trappings, in this Asian look. But she's going to be Celtic, and
It's
it was
Celtic, actually.
Oh,
Celtics
Celtic,
are
my
a
bad.
The
basketball
Celtics.
team.
I was gonna say, well, she plays for the Celtics.
Yeah, I love the scene where she had her Larry Bird jersey. That was amazing.
She had a Ray Allen jersey.
There's a scene where she comes back from a game and they don't mention it.
You live in New York. You can't. Oh wait, no, they don't. They live in.
But it was still weird that they went in that direction, and I'm like, oh, okay, like nobody will notice this. This isn't a big deal. This isn't something we should address.
It was the mishmash of cultures. I mean, the Enchantress, they did that kind of too with the Enchantress in the Suicide Squad movie, of having it be kind of like a mishmash of things. And I think in their attempt to do that, you actually tick off more people because it looks like you're not being mindful of cultural elements. But I think, the screenwriter, C. Robert Cargill, who used to write for Ain't It Cool News, believe it or not, back in the day, he got into some hot water earlier this year when he mentioned on a podcast that the Ancient One was never going to be an Asian male. It was never going to be, first of all, and I think when you get to the end of the movie and it's a battle to save Hong Kong, I think that's exactly why they didn't do that. And he said in his podcast that if you make the Ancient One Tibetan, as he is in the comics, that means you are then recognizing Tibet in your movie, and China doesn't recognize Tibet as an independent nation. So that means then your movie doesn't play in China, which is going to be the largest film market in the world. And the fact that the end of the movie is all about, we have to save Hong Kong, it's like
the end
was
of the last Transformers
Yeah, which is
film.
and it was so
exactly.
funny for that reason. Like,
Yeah.
gotta save. Because I somehow didn't know at all going to the movie that there was anything set in Hong Kong, and then when it happened, I go, oh, okay.
Yeah,
They were like,
course.
we have 3 portals, and they're all at the top of the globe, nothing at the bottom. One's definitely in Hong Kong.
Yeah, the 3 major cities: New York, London, and Hong Kong, which
'Cause
all
Dormammu
just happen
only
to
attacks
have
from the top.
film financiers based in each city. So who?
And this is, if you think about it, this is actually the second time they've done that with one of their villains. I mean, last time it was in Iron Man, and we got Ben Kingsley. So they've done the same wash twice, and and it was
Did you read the interview a friend of ours, Jenny Amato, did with Derrickson this week?
No.
Very
no.
good interview because Derrickson, for what it's worth, I mean, he's very sort of candid and is like, I felt like we have this character who is a very stereotypical, like, of the 60s character. We have to change him. And I felt, and he said something like, it was a good line where he said something about like, I thought I was choosing the lesser of two evils, but I'm still choosing an evil ultimately, as far as like, I won't do that stereotypical character, but I'll just completely change it so it's not an Asian character. So it was a damned if you don't thing, but he also basically says like, he realizes maybe he could have figured out a better way to do it.
Well, I mean, look at how they handled Wong in this movie.
No, which was,
they basically made him the drill instructor, if you will, the world's
Kilowog.
meanest
And
librarian.
in some ways,
Totally
the most
Kilowog.
knowledgeable
Yeah, he's
character.
Kilowog. You're right. Wow, there's a lot of Green Lantern
Right.
reference points here. But yeah, I think could they have done that with with Ancient One? Just
Yeah.
You can always you can always rebuild a character. You can always start from scratch and say, okay, here's the idea of the character. What are the elements that we actually need to tell this story? What are the elements that we don't? Can we strip away some of this kind of goofy, Fu Manchu twisting stuff from the 60s, and can we actually build a character that makes sense for this audience for this period?
Yeah.
That is, instead of just like, okay, we'll just race swap them and then and see if that works. Like see if we can leave some of the original elements and just we swap the race.
Because I mean, changing the race of Mordo doesn't matter because it's not an integral part of that character. But the Ancient One and Wong were based on stereotypes.
Yeah, like
I mean,
a lot
they
of these
are from
the Mandarin. It's the same. It's in the same zip code.
Yeah.
It's, it's like,
Yeah. Now let's. God, I had a point and I lost it. Well, let's hear what did you guys think of how they handled the depiction of Wong, Ancient One, and all the China stuff? Let us know in the comments. I feel like I had another point on the.
Was it going to be about?
You'll remember it in about an hour.
Yes. What did you think of? Again, big spoiler, but them killing her off. Is she really dead, or is she going to be Force Ghost showing up?
That was maybe another thing where I felt like they didn't need to do. It felt sort of very by the numbers origin-y for that to happen, and I was like, well, maybe
Obi-Wan dying.
Maybe that,
so
maybe this didn't have to happen in this movie. And I know it's like in the comics, Ancient One dies eventually, but I'm like, yeah, it felt like the hero's journey that they were kind of going by the book on.
Yep.
And so, yeah, her dying, I don't know, it was fine, but I felt like maybe it would have been more interesting if it didn't.
Excuse me. I felt like it was there because of once you get the reveal that she's been using this dark side energy, it's like to atone for that. I'm like, oh, okay, now we got to kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Baron Mordo was going to chase her to the ends of the earth, and for the next 20 minutes of the movie.
Now let's talk about the post-credit scene.
The first
one. Doctor Strange meets Thor.
That's a movie I'd go see.
Yeah. Now, how does I'm just curious. One, I thought that was very funny, and clearly it's tying into Thor Ragnarok because we saw them filming the scenes in Thor Ragnarok where he's got Doctor Strange's address on a business card.
Yeah.
What did you think of the interplay between Thor and Doctor Strange? Granted, I know it's just a moment, but I think it's going to be interesting to see these two arrogant guys kind of like, will they be more alike and like in common, or are they going to clash, I wonder?
I thought, no, I mean, I love the scene.
The beer stuff was amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, to so instantly kind of put Strange, because the movie, for the most part, is not deep into the Marvel U stuff. It exists in it. They name drop the Avengers, but it's not like
Brother Voodoo's brother.
It's not like left and right. They're like running into characters in the movies. So I did the post-credit scene. It's like, hey, here he is with Thor,
Right.
And just quickly letting you know, again, because I am excited by what Strange brings to the Marvel Universe and kind of opening the door. And so the idea of Strange and Thor interacting is fun, and seeing the two of them in that scene, I thought they played well off each other.
I bet you they weren't even in the same room.
Which
when
is
they
very
filmed that.
possible, yeah. But I think...
Because I don't think there's ever a one shot of the two of them together.
Yeah. But no, I thought it certainly got me excited to see more of that. And I thought it was interesting how, and they've done this with other movies, but it's still kind of funny because it was giving us a lot of information about Thor 3 as far as last time we saw Thor, he didn't know anything about Loki impersonating Odin, and now here it was like we're being told all like, oh, you and Loki have come looking for Odin.
So how does Thor know about Doctor Strange, and two, in a broader scale, why the hell couldn't the Sorcerers have helped out, especially when they have an Infinity Stone, and they know they have an Infinity Stone. They say it right there in the movie.
Yeah.
In the Eye of Agamotto. You're just gonna, unless it's coming from the dark dimension, man, we're not touching it. You know, aliens. Sorry.
No,
sorry,
I think they're trying to stay under the radar, and also practically, this came after.
Well, if there was ever a time to come out of the radar,
Right,
it's when
right.
aliens are attacking.
They're
Well,
like,
hopefully that'll
they
be what
got it.
happens is Thor is like, wait, you guys have an Infinity Stone.
Wait, what is that over there?
Yeah.
I've been looking for those suckers.
Exactly. Yeah, I am a little curious about sort of how they now engineer things that were set up in this movie into the larger MCU. And when you have a character who's potentially as powerful as Doctor Strange, I like that he's not really completely mastered his powers by the end of the movie. What are going to be the limits when you have a guy that can just open up a portal and send some character out? Like,
Right.
Thanos doesn't seem like all that big a deal. You can just put him in there and bye, like that's the end of the movie,
That happens 10 minutes into Infinity War.
Yeah, and they just sit around eating shawarma. Keep making shawarma. Come on, I love this guy. Look at him. He can do anything. What did you think of, oh, Lord, it went right out of my head. This is what happens when I don't write down everything. All right, other thoughts on Doctor Strange?
I thought that post-credit scene was okay. It felt like...
You're talking about the second one now?
The first one,
the
actually.
first one.
I thought
Thor
it felt
one.
like other ones that we've seen before. It gave you some Ragnarok information, so it was helpful there. The second scene I thought was a real, like I said before, a really nice setup too. A possible sequel.
Eric?
Oh, no, yeah, I liked it. I mean, I like that they, I thought it was a good use of the two post-credit scenes as far as one is going to lead into the next, well, not the very next, but, another movie that Doctor Strange will probably be appearing in versus the other being like the Doctor Strange sequel,
Okay, here's a question. I don't think Doctor Strange is going to get a sequel.
Really?
I think the movie will do well. It's already
Didn't they
made
have a
86
Doctor Strange
million.
will return tag? Like the Bond tag?
Yeah,
at the
but
end?
he can
Yeah,
return in
but we know
Avengers.
he's going to return.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, Wong and Strange are both in Infinity War.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think he's going to get a sequel. I think this movie will do well, but I don't know. I don't see it happening. I think you're going to see him, because there doesn't seem to be, I'm curious to see the broad audience if they actually really embrace this character the way the geek press has.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like, Ant-Man was such a sort of, relative risk for them, and we're getting a sequel to Ant-Man.
But it's so much more audience friendly, and Paul Rudd
Yeah.
is playing Paul Rudd, and
Yeah.
people like Paul Rudd.
But I do agree. It's like, Cumberbatch is interesting in that he's one of those people who, has he been like a true movie star until now? And I'd say no, even though I know he's been in all this stuff, but nothing's
he's
really,
not a movie star.
no like huge project has rested on him. I mean, Sherlock is a cult show ultimately. It's not like, the viewership is not through the roof.
I mean, The Imitation Game was his big,
Right.
ticket to the would-be A-list, and he got an Oscar nomination. But I don't. Yeah, I think he's still that guy actor. Like people who are like internet famous.
But I do think, I don't know, I think this will resonate enough. I think it has enough elements. People will love him. He already has a fan base, but I think it will grow from this. They'll love the trappings of it, the costumes, the visuals.
That cloak of levitation is awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
good
I love
gag.
that.
It was the rug from Aladdin, basically.
Or like the brooms from Fantasia.
It was very Disney.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I say it does eke out a sequel. I think it does get a follow up because if it didn't, then that tag the tag is almost prominent now. Of course, we had Sinestro and other tags that went nowhere.
Yeah.
But with the MCU, it's like they could do anything and they could have that Baron Mordo return in another movie.
Mordo could be the one that steals the Infinity Stone for
he could team up with Thanos.
Yeah.
But I still think that Strange will get his own sort of continuation, and maybe it'll be a few movies away, but at some point.
Yeah. All right. So final thoughts. Doctor Strange. We liked it, but didn't love it.
Yeah. It
That
was cool.
sound fair?
It was entertaining, and that's all it really had to be.
Yeah. Do you think you'll remember this movie kind of afterwards? So like, I feel like there's kind of, we've had so many Marvel movies now. I think I actually enjoyed Ant-Man maybe a little more than this one.
I did for sure. I thought Ant-Man just clicked, in a slightly different way than Strange did. Again, and it's funny. It's everything I think we're saying here is like, I know people will be like, you just criticized so many things. I'm like, well, yeah, those are the reasons I think that we didn't love it.
Yeah.
Even though it was a totally entertaining film, but I feel like, like Ant-Man, I feel is a little more probably rewatchable because there's just a little bit of energy it has, and maybe because it did approach the origin from a different perspective. It was a legacy character. There was a little more of like, we just
It
need
was
you.
set up as a caper. And
Yeah,
there was other beats and elements to it.
Right, whereas this, again, there's nothing wrong with an origin story, and there's been some great ones, but I just think that they could have, like you said, maybe non-linear or something that would have made it spark a little bit more, and yet I definitely thought it was great acting, great visuals, and some great sequences. It's just, it didn't add up to a great movie, it added up to a good movie, and it's okay.
You know what, good movies
it
are
feels
fun. We
very
like
much like the first Thor film, where it's kind of the stakes, they appear to be big, but feel very small.
Yeah.
The villain is important, but still, although Thor had a better villain, it still felt small and contained. And,
It's amazing how much of Doctor Strange, for all this otherworldly stuff, how much of it is really just people indoors talking.
Right.
Like all that New York street stuff is like there are certain sequences of it, but for the most part they're inside. A lot of the movie.
But although all of the action pieces really worked, the action set pieces all I thought really worked.
Hey, it's the most action-packed, entertaining movie of the year that has a library as a main set. So.
Yes. Until probably Fantastic Beasts probably has a library.
Right. And is there a night? Well, I was gonna say Night at the Museum, but then I was like, Night at the Library. That's a whole other.
Don't text and drive, and read books.
Exactly. All right, guys and ladies, we want to hear what you have to say about Doctor Strange. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let us know in the comments. You can follow us on Twitter at Jim Bavida, at Ahmad Childress, at the Eric Goldman. Send us your thoughts there and in the comments below for all things Marvel, movies, and otherwise. Keep it here on IGN. Thanks for watching.